Bubble Bobble is the first game I've ever played that caused me actual physical pain in the first 2 seconds. Little did I know when I downloaded this ROM and booted it up, my ears would get blasted with the most grating high-pitched screech I've ever heard from an NES game in my entire life. Now, is this my fault for having my headphones on at max volume? Well, yeah, obviously, but still, I think I just had the same experience some of you do when you hear my voice for the first time. Anyway, Bubble Bobble was released in 1986 by the lovely folks over at Taito, the same company that made Space Invaders. Of all the big arcade companies, Taito stands out among the crowd as the weirdest to me, by far. You know how their first major success was a simple, accessible game that everyone and their grandmother could try out and understand perfectly? Well, they'd go on to make such classics as Liquid Kids, Bond's Adventure, Camel Try, Don Doko Don, and of course, Violence Fight. If you want to look at some of the most insane games ever created, I highly recommend Taito Legends 1 and 2 for the PS2 and Xbox. Bubble Bobble is perhaps Taito's second most famous game, and it perfectly encapsulates that weirdness I love about him. This game makes absolutely no sense, feeling more like a fever dream than an actual structured platform arcade game. As always, I'll be reviewing the NES version, which as far as I can tell is really accurate. The most noticeable thing is the graphical limitations. Because these levels weren't designed with an NES in mind, there is a lot of sprite flickering. With the exception of some of the Mega Man games, I think it might be the worst sprite flickering I've actually ever seen in an NES game. I'm sure there are hundreds of other games with worse sprite flickering, but this is the worst of the games I've reviewed so far. It's kind of annoying, but you get used to it after a while. You play as Bub and Bob, two dragons who shoot bubbles at enemies to kill them. This means that Bubble Bobble is a co-op game, and it's a really good one at that. Your moveset is pretty simple. You jump with A and shoot bubbles with B. It controls fine for the most part. My only complaint is that you move a little slow and falling downwards takes forever and a half. When you hit an enemy with a bubble, they get trapped in it and you can kill them by popping it. If you pop a bunch at the same time, you get more points. If you don't pop them, the enemies will escape and get angry. They also get angry if they're the last one in the level or if you take too long, yada yada. The gameplay is actually really similar to the original Mario Brothers. The difference is, instead of playing as two overweight plumbers, you get to play as two dragons, so this game is automatically 50 times better. Now, the basic structure of the game is just that, and it's honestly really fun. The part where the game kind of loses me though is when they add all of the extra power-ups and random enemies and all of the other stuff that makes absolutely no sense. My biggest complaint in this entire game is the appearance of Baron von Blubba. If you take too long in a level, then eventually this white ghost thing that's completely invincible will start chasing you down until you die. Now, I understand why they added this thing in the game. I actually prefer having him over a static time limit, and he can help if you get soft locked. The problem is, some levels in this game were purposefully designed to waste your time and make him spawn in. An early example of this is level 13. There are a bunch of enemies at the start of the level who are trapped in the big heart in the middle. To kill them, you have to hit these blue bubbles which sink to the bottom of the screen super fast and take along anything they touch. I like the idea on paper, but in execution it is so ridiculously annoying to aim that I wish they hadn't bothered. When you get to the last one and it gets angry, it becomes basically impossible to aim it correctly. And if you dilly-dally for too long, then the Baron will spawn in and kill you, meaning that was all meaningless. Along with the blue ones, there are also thunder and fire bubbles, and these are pretty fun to use. Going into power-ups, there are these letters you can collect, and when you spell the word extend, you can skip a level. Now on paper, this seems like a great idea, right? It seems pretty balanced. You need to collect 6 items, and only then you can skip a level. Well, did I mention the umbrella that just spawns in randomly that lets you skip 5 stages in a row? That's super balanced, isn't it? Now granted, the extend bubbles also give you an extra life, but you were probably going to lose that extra life anyway in the 4 levels you just skipped with the umbrella. The power-ups in this game are completely and utterly broken. Whenever you pick up a random item that just spawned in, it'll either do nothing but give you points, or it'll make the game win itself. It's about 50-50. I'm gonna be honest with you, I actually kinda love that. They kind of make the game a completely chaotic mess, but at the same time they also make it pretty fun. And with that, there are only 3 major complaints I have left. First off, the music gets extremely repetitive over time. It's a good song, but there's only one song for 99 levels. Sure, there's a different track for the boss, but that's like 3 hours in. Also, it doesn't even stop when you pause the game. Who programmed it like that and why? Until you get to the boss, there is no escape from that theme. My second and biggest complaint, though, has to be the level design. This game has 113 levels. Yes, 113. Even for a game where the levels only take up one screen, that's an insane number. The problem is, out of the 100 levels I played, I would say I enjoyed about 20 of them. The majority of them are just forgettable and boring, but there are plenty that I absolutely despise. I would like to give some special shoutouts, with the first one being 79. It's extremely cramped and awkward. All of the enemies are hard to get to, and they're even harder to hit once you put them in a bubble. Another dishonorable mention goes to level 81. The geniuses who made this one decided it would be a great idea to bounce from the top of the screen to the bottom, meaning you have to move directly into the line of fire of 3 enemies who constantly shoot down. I have a confession to make. This one was honestly just so difficult and so boring and so infuriating that I skipped it. So yeah, I've only played 99 of this game's 113 levels. Speaking of skipping levels, I'd like to mention this game's password system because I kinda like it. Because this game is pretty simple, it can get away with only having 5-letter passwords. And on top of that, they only use the first 10 letters, which is awesome. Thanks, Taito. I wish every game developer for the NES was so good with passwords. My last dishonorable mention is level 99, which is just awful. I would have skipped this one too, but there's no password to level 100, so it was mandatory. You have to use the fire bubbles to hit the bouncing enemies through a really narrow opening in the floor, and it's so annoying. I'm not joking when I say that this level took me about 30 minutes. That doesn't sound like long, but these levels are usually only 1 minute, and they're also only one screen. But my third and final complaint has to be the final boss. You have to hit this thing 60 times. Yeah, 60 times in a game where every other enemy dies in 1 hit. And you can't just shoot them with bubbles either, no, that would be too easy. You have to pop this bottle at the top of the screen, which makes you shoot thunder bubbles, which you then have to pop at the right time to hit him with. He's honestly not that bad once you figure out how to do it. The problem is, you have to figure out how to do it, which took me an hour. Yeah, if the From Software games taught me anything, it's that banging your head against a wall to try to beat a boss is always worth it. You want to know what the real kick in the teeth is? Once you finally beat the final boss, you get a message saying that that was the wrong ending. It turns out that there's a magical gateway in level 99 that you have to go through or something, I don't know really. I also don't care. It may have been a bad ending, but it was an ending regardless, so I beat the game. You know, I forgot to mention this game's title screen. It's simple, but I really like it, especially the bubbles moving in the background, that's really nice. Bubble Bobble is a really good game, but I strongly advise you, don't try to beat it. It starts out really fun, and then it just keeps getting more and more annoying. It was absolutely not worth the 3 hours I put into it. Honestly, once you've played through the first, 20 levels or so, you can just stop. You've seen everything it has to offer. Now, when it comes to the ranking, I'd say it's just a little bit better than Mario Bros., as I said. They're very similar games, but I feel like Bubble Bobble edges it out just a tiny bit. This was honestly kind of exhausting. I played Bubble Bobble longer for this review than any other game I've reviewed so far. That includes the production of both of my videos on Super Mario Bros. I think up next I'm just gonna play golf or something. Anyway, 8 out of 10, thank you for watching, have a good day, like and subscribe, bye!